Now what I'd like to do is go ahead and go back into Main.cob, and we'll code up a couple of lines of COBOL code here just to kind of get the compiler to build us a .NET executable. The first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and put in a little bit of working storage in here, and again what I'll do is give it an 01, and I'll just call this stuff, and I'll make this pick X for 1, and that should do it right there. Now the next thing I'll do is I'll go ahead and code up a line here, so I'll make this display and we'll make that .NET world. And the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to say accept from console. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about what it is that I've done here. I've set up my working storage, I've done a display, and then I've got this accept stuff from console. The only reason why I set up that accept stuff was to stop the actual debugger from moving on through the program before you could see what it is that the program actually did. So what we're going to do now is we're going to actually go ahead and call this done, and we're going to go ahead and build this. So let me open up the output window so that you can actually see it work, and then we'll go ahead and build it. So I'll come here to my output window, and oh, by the way, before I go any farther, if the output window is not up, or any of the windows that you want to see are not up, you can come up here to view and then look at the windows that are located right here. If the output window wasn't up, I would just come up here to view output and click on that, and of course that would bring up my window. I've got it already down here on my lower toolbar. What I'll do is I'll just go ahead and pin that down so that you can really see what it is that's going on, and I'll kind of get rid of my other thing here so that we can have a little bit less clutter on the screen, and then we'll go ahead and get our build to go. So I'll come up here to build, and I'll say build console application 1. And we have a successful build. Now before I go any farther, I want to point out a couple of things. You saw in the properties part of your project where you could specify whether you're doing building up a debug or a release module. Another place to do that is right here. So I could set up my solution configuration for debug or release. Right now I've got it set up to go to debug. Now what I'd like to do is go ahead and introduce an error into the program, so I can show you how the error window works and kind of show you how to navigate in this environment with an error and how to easily go through and fix something. As you can see, I have created an error right here. I'm going to go ahead and run the build. And as you can see, I did have an error, and the output window says, okay, build 0 succeeded or up to date, 1 failed, and 0 skipped. Now I'm going to come up here to my error list. This is automatically populated with what the error is. And in this particular case, it's saying I've got an error, I've got 1 error, 0 warnings, 0 messages. Evidently I've misspelled display, so I can just double click on that and I should be taken directly to the location. Again, my cursor is already there, as you can see, and this little hash mark is also in the window as well. It basically says here's an error. This gives you an error number, and it says user words display is undefined. So I'll go ahead and correct that. So I'll make it, instead of display, I'll make it display, and now that should be fine. I'll go ahead and rebuild that, and of course we should get a successful build. And here we are. Okay, so the next thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to go ahead and debug this particular application. Now, a couple of things that you need to know. Whenever you're debugging an application and you start it up, the very first debuggable line is actually the line that I'm on right now, procedure division. I can go ahead and put a breakpoint in right here just by clicking on this gray bar right here at the side, and basically says that at Main.cob line 12, character 12, I'm going to stop. I'm going to basically say I'm going to debug the particular application from this point. So I can come up here to Debug, and of course I can click on Start Debugging. You can also press F5, or if you like, you can also press this green arrow key right here, this green arrow button. Now I want you to notice what happens. I get that DOS window up there, and then that kind of will go away. Then you see this little red dot with the yellow arrow through it. This is the next statement that's going to be executed. Now what I'll do, just so that you can see everything happen, is I'll adjust my screen just a little bit so that you can actually see this actually run. And what I'll do is I'll actually go through and step through this. I can click on Debug, and I can just click on Step Over, and you can actually see hello.NET World actually come up in this console window. And of course, if I say click on this Debug again, Step Over, it will basically sit there and wait for me to do something. It's looking for an accept, and of course I'm just going to press Enter. And of course what happens here is that the next program, or the next thing that will be executed in this particular case, is the end program. So if I just go ahead and debug and continue, that will actually terminate this run, or terminate this program. So let's kind of step through that in just a little bit more detail. It was easy to set up my breakpoint. If I don't want to set up a breakpoint, there is one other thing that I can do with this. I can basically say debug and step over just like this, or I can just press the F10 key at this particular point, and again it will stop on the very first debuggable line. As you can see, there's no breakpoint, but the arrow comes up and basically says, this is the next statement that will be executed. So what I'll do is go ahead and come back up here to the debug menu and click on F10. And as you can see, I've got an arrow that's right here at the procedure division. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and move this console window around here just so that you can see it a little bit better. And then I'll come up here and just click on F10 again, so that'll step into or step over, so you can actually see all of this happen. Now you can do this, oops, I don't want to stop that. You can actually do this yourself with your F10 key on your keyboard. Again, I'm just debug, F10, and now the window is waiting for me to do something here, so I'll just press enter, and now it comes back to end program. Again, I can just say F10, step over, and now the debugging is complete. Now, one of the other things that I would like to do is to show you, come back around here to this solution configuration. We've created a subdirectory out there, and let me actually go to that so that you can see that. We've created the console application 1. If I go in here to bin, you will see the debug subdirectory. And again, if I click down into debug subdirectory, you'll see the console application 1.exe, and of course you'll see this console application 1.pdb. This is the program debug database. This contains all of the necessary symbols and pointers for the console application 1.exe, the debug executable, to point back to the appropriate source code. So you want to keep in mind that whenever you produce a debug component, you're going to always have this PDB file. One of the other things that I think is that I'd like to bring up before we move past this is, if you'll recall, I started talking about post-build events. If your objective is to take and debug or run the debugger in a test environment, you need to take and move both of these items, both of these files, to your test platform in order for that to work. So again, be very mindful of how that is set up and how you set up your post-build event in that particular situation. Now I'm going to come back up here, and again, you'll see the debug subdirectory and nothing else. I'm going to come back over to my Visual Studio. I'm going to change my release, or change this from debug to release, and now I'll go through and do a build on this. So build console application 1, and of course I'll come out here, show you my output window, and of course the build succeeded. Now what I'll do now is kind of close that down, and we'll go back over here to my uh, File Explorer. Now you see, in addition to the debug, we've got a release subdirectory, and if I double click on that, I'll see console application1.exe. And again, it creates the same name executable. The only difference is that under debug, you have to have that PDB file in order for the debugger to actually fire and associate itself with the source file.